this video, I'm going to show you the exact process that we use to help our clients solve their pain and injuries without just giving up the lifting that they love so that they can confidently get back to lifting heavy again. Now, chances are if you're watching this video, then you're somebody who really loves your lifting, especially heavy barbell lifting like squats, cleans, deadlifts, snatching, pressing, all of those sorts of things. And unfortunately, you're now probably dealing with an injury yourself. This may have been something that didn't have any big inciting incident and kind of crept up on you out of nowhere, or it may have happened all of a sudden during a heavy lift or during a really hard set where you just felt that pain come on right away and now you've been dealing with it ever since. This video is for you if you really love your lifting, you enjoy training hard and pushing yourself in the gym and hitting PRs, but now you're frustrated that you can't lift the way that you used to. You go into the sessions not looking forward to your training, you're unsure if what you're going to do that day is going to flare up your injury all over again, and you just have a lot of stress and anxiety around the actual lifting that you want to be doing. You are also tired of doing the traditional physical therapy cookie cutter plan where you do really low level stuff that's not individualized to you and you may see a little bit of progress, but you never actually fully get back to lifting. And now you actually do want to get back to lifting heavy again, hitting PRs, and being able to train in a way that you're not just constantly worrying about hurting yourself in the gym anymore. However, if lifting isn't something that's like really important for you, you don't really care about getting back to a higher level of performance, you're okay with continuing on the same kind of traditional cookie cutter PT route, and whether or not you get back to really lifting heavy again and push yourself and hitting PRs isn't something that's a big priority for you, then this might not be the right thing for you, and that's totally fine. A lot of people, when they first start working with us or first start looking into us, they're very skeptical about whether or not they can actually solve their injury and reach their goals. And that's a very valid thing to feel. You've probably worked with many other physical therapists or doctors or chiropractors for help with this and just not seen the results that you're looking for. But we've worked with hundreds of lifters by this point and have helped them overcome their injuries, solve their pain, and get back to lifting, and chances are that you can too. Take Kyle, for example. He had been dealing with a back injury for more than a year before reaching out to us, and he's now back to confidently squatting and deadlifting heavy pretty much every single week without any issue. And Marissa, who's an Olympic weightlifter and cross athlete who had been dealing with knee pain for a long time and now can finally clean, squat, and snatch without worrying about her knee constantly. And Rich, who's a competitive powerlifter who had been dealing with a low back injury for years and had tried multiple physical therapists before working with us, and he's now back to squatting and deadlifting heavy, he's setting PRs, and he's competing again, all without any back pain. And Nate, who's into like general strength training and bodybuilding, and he had been dealing with multiple injuries before working with us, and he's now back to lifting without any issue, setting PRs, and chasing the actual training that he wants to be doing. Those clients came from different training backgrounds and different training styles, and they ultimately had very different goals, but they all had several things in common. They really enjoyed their training and they missed being able to train the way that they loved. They wanted to feel strong again. They wanted to go into the gym and be confident that their bodies could handle the lifting that they wanted to be doing. And they missed hitting PRs, whether that was on the platform or just chasing rep or weight PRs in the gym. After dealing with their injuries for a long time, they found themselves like skipping workouts, skipping lifts altogether. They would go into the gym being very unsure that they could handle their training for that day without flaring things up. They were basically second guessing everything that they were doing, and they were always constantly worried that they were just going to hurt themselves all over again. And they even found their injuries affecting themselves outside of the gym. They found that they had worse moods because of their injury and because they couldn't train the way that they wanted to. They didn't have that stress outlet of lifting and going to the gym and working on whatever stressors they were dealing with. And they even found that it had an impact on their relationships. They were shorter, more frustrated, just not enjoyable to be around because they had been in pain for so long and unable to train the way that they wanted to. And ultimately, they just didn't feel like themselves anymore. And chances are, if you're watching this and you've made it this far, you're probably feeling a lot of these same things. And like most of our other clients, all of these clients had tried many other things to solve their injuries before they came to work with us. The three most common things that people tried before working with us are complete rest, traditional physical therapy, and just trying to rehab their injuries on their own. And unfortunately, these usual strategies very rarely get lifters the actual results that they're looking for from their injuries. And we're going to discuss why in a little bit more detail for each of these. Many lifters, when they're dealing with an injury, one of the things that they do to try to solve the injury is just completely avoiding either the lifts that flare up their pain or just training altogether. And most lifters do this for one of two reasons. First is they're either told to do that by a physical therapist, a chiropractor, or their doctor, or it's just something that intuitively kind of makes sense to them. And it does make sense. Like if you're having pain with the lift or pain with training and you stop that lift or just stop training altogether, then yeah, your pain's probably going to subside because you're not doing the stuff that aggravates your injury. The issue is just completely avoiding those lifts or avoiding your training altogether is not actually solving the problem. It's just avoiding the problem. So while you may feel better in the short term doing that, when you try to get back to lifting, you haven't actually addressed the issue, nor have you built up the capacity of your injured body part to handle the type of training that you want to be doing. So when you try to get back to that type of training, it just flares right up again. Many lifters also try traditional physical therapy to solve their injuries. And again, this is something that just kind of makes sense. If they go to their doctor, they get referred to a local physical therapist and they go there because they accept their insurance, they're close to them, it's convenient, and it's just the very normal thing to do. But there are many issues that traditional physical therapy provides that are just not great for lifters. First, there's not a ton of one-on-one help. Most of these clinics that are traditional insurance-based clinics, each physical therapist has to work with multiple patients all at one time, so their attention is always split in between the different clients that they're working with. So for somebody who's a lifter and has higher level needs and wants to get back to a higher level of performance, not having that one-on-one attention really impacts the results that they get. Further, unfortunately, not a lot of physical therapists are very knowledgeable about training or lifting heavy, powerlifting, Olympic weightlifting, CrossFit, things like this. So when lifters go to those types of physical therapists for help, they're one, often told to just stop the lifts that hurt, which takes us back to the issue with complete rest. And two, the type of rehab plans that they're given are very low level, very cookie cutter, not individualized, and not actually built for a lifter. When they go for back pain, they get the same planks, bird dogs, dead bugs. When they go for shoulder pain, they get the same banded external rotations with 10 plus reps in reserve. And the type of rehab plans that they're given just aren't designed to get you back to lifting, nor do they progress over time like a rehab plan actually should if you want to get back to heavy lifting. And then by trying complete rest and trying to go to traditional PT clinics for help with their injury and not seeing the results that they're looking for, a lot of lifters then resort to trying to rehab their injury on their own. They scroll Instagram, they go on YouTube, and they look up on Google what they should or shouldn't do for their injury. And one of the big issues is there is so much information out there that is both good and bad. And unless you know what you're looking for, it can be almost impossible to figure out what is actual good injury and rehab advice for your specific injury in your specific case, and what is really bad advice. And this leads to a lot of lifters just coming up with these rehab plans from various rehab drills that they find online, and they just throw them together, throw it at the wall, kind of see what sticks, and they get very inconsistent results. They don't have accountability to help them when things are going well or going poorly. They don't have any structured progression with that plan because it's like Frankenstein type of rehab plan. And they just wind up hopping from rehab drill to rehab drill and different strategies every other week, not actually sticking with one thing to give enough time to see if it's actually going to work. And when so many lifters try these different strategies to rehab their injury, they find themselves in what I like to call the injured lifter cycle. So they experience that first pain or injury that really affects their training. They try rest and low-level rehab through either a traditional PT clinic or trying to figure out on their own. And they may feel a little bit better because they're not doing things that aggravate their injury before, and they're doing some type of rehab work. And they do that for a little while, and they start to feel a little bit more confident. So they try to get back to lifting again, but because they haven't had a really structured, progressive, and individualized rehab plan that actually helps them keep training while they're rehabbing their injury and actually build up their injured area, when they do try to get back to lifting, the injury just flares right back up again. And then they just end up in this cycle for weeks, months, or sometimes even years. So if this is your first time coming across me or my page or my information, I just wanted to give you a little bit of information about who I am. My name is Dr. Ryan Noonheis, and I'm a doctor of physical therapy as well as a lifter and a coach myself. And I've been lifting and into sports since I was a little kid, so I've been doing it basically my whole life. And I got into physical therapy because as a younger lifter and athlete, I dealt with multiple injuries. And for some of those injuries, I had to end up going to physical therapy myself. And what I found was that going through physical therapy, very often it would help me reach some level of results. I could regain my mobility, I could gain back a little bit of strength, I'd be feeling a little bit better. But what I was doing in those rehab sessions was the same as pretty much everybody else in the clinic. If I was going for shoulder pain, I was doing the same shoulder plan as middle-aged or sedentary kind of older adults who didn't want to get back to lifting like me. And I found that my physical therapist really didn't know how to properly help a lifter and athlete get back to 100% or a high level of performance. There was a very big gap between where I ended or where I was at the end of traditional physical therapy and where I wanted to get back to. And I had to try to navigate that gap by myself and figure out how to get back to actually where I wanted to be. And that process was really scary. It was very much filled with ups and downs. I would constantly kind of flare my injury up again and take one step forward, two steps back. And it was just a process that was really difficult to navigate because I didn't know what to do at that time. And the physical therapist I was working with also didn't know how to properly help me and help me reach my goals. So I decided to become a physical therapist myself. I went to PT school. I always knew that I wanted to work specifically with lifters because that's who I was and that's who I really enjoyed working with. And after graduating PT school, I worked at a couple different jobs, and then I ended up opening up my own practice. And since then, I've worked specifically with lifters all over the country and even across the globe, helping them to actually solve their injuries, get a rehab plan and rehab help that was what they were looking for so that they could ultimately get back to the type of lifting that they wanted to be doing and be confident in their bodies again. And we at Barbell PT and Performance do things very differently. First and foremost, yes, we are physical therapists, but we are also lifters and coaches ourselves. So we know what it's like to want to get back to lifting at a high level, to have that desire to train hard and be confident in our bodies, and we completely understand that. Our mission is to not only help our clients solve their injuries and get out of pain, but become confident in their bodies again, get back to train the way that they want to, and hit whatever PRs that they want to be hitting. We never tell our clients to just stop lifting to solve their pain. We always work with each and every one of our clients to come up with a customized plan that will keep them in the gym, training the way that they want to, but in a smart way around their injury, while implementing rehab work that's individualized to them and will truly get them back to lifting heavy. We don't get them doing any cookie cutter rehab plans or anything like that. Everything is 100% individualized to each and every person so that they can have the best chance at a successful outcome and solve their injury once and for all. And we do that using our 3-step back to barbell system. Those steps are reveal, rebuild, and resilience. And we're gonna talk about each one of those steps next so you know exactly what it's like to work with us. The first step is reveal, which is all about figuring out exactly what's going on with your injury, why it happened, and what needs to be done to fix it. And we do this with 2 main components. The first is a very thorough interview process so we can figure out all of the big picture pieces of the puzzle. We talk about your injury and training history, your pain patterns and pain triggers, your schedule, lifestyle factors like your sleep and work stress, and all those big picture things to figure out the foundation of how we're going to develop your program for you. And then from there, we take you through a full body movement assessment. So we look at your flexibility, strength, stability, mobility, all of those performance aspects to figure out what specific limitations you have, and therefore what we need to program from a rehab perspective to get you back to 100%. Because you could have the same exact injury or diagnosis as 10 other clients of ours, but you would very likely have different limitations in those areas, different limitations and changes in your schedule and pain patterns and pain triggers. And because of those key differences, you need a very different rehab plan than any of those other clients. And this is exactly what our client Mike found. He came to work with us after undergoing low back surgery, and he had gone through traditional PT. He had done the basic kind of bodyweight core stability stuff, planks, bird dogs, dead bugs, and found that he didn't get the results that he was looking for in being able to get back to heavy squatting and deadlifting and RDLs and just heavy barbell training in general. And because of this, he didn't know what needed to be done. He didn't know how to train his lower back and his core to handle the demands of his lifting. And that's exactly what we found out in this assessment. We took a big look at his lifestyle factors and schedule, and then we did a lot of testing of his core strength and core endurance to figure out what specific limitations he had so that we knew exactly how to tailor his rehab program to him. And when we did that, we designed him a very individualized rehab plan that was built specifically towards his needs and his goals. And we did that over the course of several months. And by the end of it, he was back to confidently squatting and deadlifting heavy again. He was pulling and squatting over 400 pounds without really any difficulty within that time frame. And ever since then, he's been back to training, and he's finally confident in his back again for the first time in several years, actually. The second step is rebuild, which is all about building out and coaching you through a completely individualized training and rehab program. So this is one program that takes the lifting that you want to be doing and modifies it around your injury so you can train safely and effectively while you're rehabbing your injury. And we blend that with rehab work that's individualized to you and your goals and is based upon that movement assessment in step one. And this is what we did with our client, Chloe. She is a competitive Olympic weightlifter who had been dealing with back pain and sciatica for more than 2 years before working with us. And when she went to physical therapy, she just got the same cookie cutter program as everybody else. There wasn't any individualization, and they didn't help her modify her weightlifting training. So because of that, she saw a little bit of progress in the beginning, but it was very small, and there was a very big gap between where she wanted to be and where she was after that type of PT plan. And with us, we developed a training program that took the clean and jerk, snatches, squats, pulls, modified them around her injury and progressed those over time, and included rehab work that was tailored specifically towards her limitations and also progressed over time too. And by the end of working with us, she was training basically pain-free. She hit a 5 kilo front squat PR at the end of her time with us, and shortly after working with us, she competed at AO Nationals or AO Finals. She hit a total PR, and she has been back to training hard and loving her training ever since. And on top of the program, during this time, we also provide daily communication, weekly check-ins, monthly video calls, a lot of support and accountability throughout this process so that your questions are never left unanswered. You know exactly what to do, what not to do every single day, and you have somebody there with you every step of the way to get you back to 100%. And the last step is resilience. And this step is all about teaching you and giving you the skills and the knowledge to take your own health and wellness into your hands in the future. Because at the end of the day, if you're training hard enough for a long enough period of time, sometimes shit just happens, and injuries, tweaks, aches, and pains can be a part of the process no matter how careful you are with your training. So what we want to do is teach our clients how to modify their training around injuries, how to rehab their own injuries, how to address flare-ups if they happen in the future. That way, if anything ever does happen, then they're not reliant upon us or any other healthcare provider to continue training, to effectively rehab that injury, and get back to 100% on their own. And this is exactly what we're doing with Ellis now. He's been working with us for several months at this point and has come a really long way with his injury. And he's back to consistently squatting and deadlifting and benching and training in a way that he wants to now. And he's become a lot more confident in his body. And through what we've taught him, he knows how to handle any future aches or pains or tweaks or flare-ups if they do happen down the road. And he's not constantly worried about those things happening. He knows that if or when that does happen, he knows exactly how to handle it, how to come out the other side stronger, in better condition, and just more confident in his body. So those are the exact 3 steps that we've used to help over 500 lifters solve their pain, get back to training in a way that they want to, and finally become confident in their bodies again. Like our client Jeremiah, who's a CrossFit athlete who had been dealing with mid and low back pain for years. He had tried the traditional PT route, found that every time he tried to get back to training, it would just flare on up again. And he's now back to consistently lifting heavy, squatting, doing clean snatches, and getting back to CrossFit classes without really any pain or limitation. And Rob, who had been dealing with back pain and sciatica for years, and he's now back to squatting and deadlifting over 315 pounds with relative ease and without any pain again. And Ellen, who's a competitive weightlifter who was dealing with some pretty nasty shoulder pain that was affecting her overhead training, and she's now back to snatches and jerks without any shoulder pain. She's competed since working with us, and she's just really doing great and crushing on the platform. And Abby, who's back to squatting, deadlifting, doing hang cleans, power snatches, all without any pain or limitation. So if you've watched this video this far, then you know that something needs to be done differently in order to actually solve the injury that you're dealing with and get back to the type of lifting that you want to be doing. The complete rest, the traditional physical therapy, trying to rehab on your own, all of those strategies have not come up with the results that you've been hoping for. And if you want to finally get confident in your body again, get back to heavy lifting, hit PRs again, then you need something different that's actually geared towards lifters and is individualized to you and your goals. And if that's what you're looking for, then just click the link in the description below and schedule a free consultation call with me and my team. In that call, we'll discuss what your injury is, how it's been affecting you, what you've tried, what you want to get back to doing, and we'll ultimately determine if we are the right people to help you out. And if we are confident we are, then we'll walk through exactly what that plan will look like for you so you can see the actual process to get you from where you are now dealing with your injury back to confidently lifting heavy again without pain. So just click the link below, fill out the application, and let's get you back onto the bar.